Sometimes things just happen for the plot. And I think that's also okay because if we make mistakes as people too, you can go, well, that was just for the plot.
That's where I am currently. Is like sometimes, again, not everything is a growth opportunity. Sometimes shit happens and you just react the way you react and you spiral, and it's still okay.
Can't always know why things happen, but it's about going, that happened, this is what I felt from it, how do I now move forward with that? There's definitely been some learning curves of navigating how to be a young woman in the industry. The fact that they see my age and then they see my gender and they put two and two together and it becomes its own battle. But I equally think the reason I'm able to navigate it is just because I know I have so much experience behind me and under my belt. Mentality that it's about fighting for your seat at the table, and my logic is make your own table, make your own seat. Why is there one table? There's lots of tables. Let's just make new tables.
I am making my own table, my own thing, and that's where I'm going to be sitting. Love it. And also in the night, talking to the universe and God, and just go like, please show me. Is this meant to be in my life or not? If not, take it. And if so, show me how.
Good morning. Hello and welcome to Ambitchiously Intelligent. Thank you so much for making the time to have this conversation with us today. We do really appreciate it. I'm going to introduce you. And Isabella Blake-Thomas, you are an amazing actor, producer, writer, singer, and also co-founder of Mother-Daughter Entertainment. That's quite a list for the very young person's cell.
It is. I think I qualify as a multi-hyphenate.
Exactly. Yes,
you do. Yes,
you do. Yeah, and we're very welcoming people like that here.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You know what's particularly interesting is kind of the timeline of events now is that we just interviewed your mother, and she's also your creative partner, your partner in crime. It feels like your two souls are intertwined, you know, which is not that unusual for parent and daughter, but though you have a very special connection. And we really are, you know, it's very fascinating for us to have you back to back. So one thing that stood out to me when we had shared the pre-talk, you said that you speak film like you speak English.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, and you've grown on sets around productions since you were very, very little. So what's that experience kind of, you know, being immersed in film industry, which can be, you know, very tough as well. What that taught you at such young age, that kind of very difficult to get elsewhere, like in a classroom, in a film school, from outside the world.
Well, I'm very grateful that I've been able to grow up in the industry that I want to stay in, because I think of it, I often compare it to like sort of old-fashioned apprenticeship, right? So in the olden days, if you wanted to become a carpenter, you would go and train under a carpenter and you would work your way up until you were really good at it, and then you would own your own business or whatever it was. And I think film is often treated like that, which is, yes, you might go to school for it, but equally you can kind of do an apprenticeship under someone with more experience and work your way up. But for me, I was able to learn it from such a young age that it's almost as if it was a family trade, if you're looking in comparison to something like carpentry, where even though I was the first one in my family to do film, I started at the age of 4, as you said, and that means that everything I was absorbing was in some way related to film, whether it was just my social skills or whether it was actual film information. I was absorbing it because at that age you're taking in everything around you. I mean, I always joke that actually I don't really curse, I don't really swear, but I knew all the swear words because everyone on set always swears, so I knew I didn't need to use them because they were being used for me.
What if like, you know, comparing, you have obviously like people around you, your co-stars, and other people in the industry who didn't have the same exposure at a young age. Have you ever, you know, can you pinpoint what's the difference or what sort of insight you had, and you know, how that differentiates you?
I think when I look at the other actors I've been fortunate enough to work with, I have actually worked with a range of experience levels, where I've worked with people that it was their first job, their second job, but I've also worked with incredibly well-known big stars. The reason this is coming to mind is because sadly Anthony Head just passed away, but I worked with him on a project called Dancing on the Edge. I worked with Chiwetel Ejiofor on that one, and John Goodman. So I've worked with these actors that at the top of their game, who are probably the most talented people I've worked with, and then equally people that have never done it before. And so for me, I think, yes, of course, there's a difference in knowledge when it comes to what I've been able to learn and what maybe newer people are able to learn. But at the end of the day, because we're all there to do our jobs and it's still work, everyone throws themselves into it in such a powerful way that I end up learning from people that have never done it before. And people who are more experienced learn from me, because we're all bringing our own experiences to it. So yes, there's a difference, and you can see certain things like maybe in the newer actors, there might not be the same level of set etiquette knowledge because they've just not done it as much. But when it comes to the actual work, we're all bringing our own essence to the characters anyway. So you end up bringing something new, whether you're experienced or not.
That is true. We do that as actors, and it's important that we have the work before we come to set and all of that.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you, and I think it's beautiful, is that there are a lot of child actors that get then very lost, and you're really successful. I mean, you're in big productions. Just saying the name Disney, let's just drop that.
Yeah.
How were you able to stay so grounded through all of that?
The number one thing is definitely my mum, because she was never my mummager, which I think a lot of people assume she was. She was always just there to support me, because in the UK, I don't know if it's still this way, but when I was younger, you could have your parents on set as a chaperone. So my mum was my chaperone, which meant she was always there to protect me and look after me. And I think having her constantly around me was a huge help, because she herself, as you know, is also a very grounded human being. But equally, I will attest it to, I'll give myself some credit as well, because even now I'm someone that I will pick the opposite of whatever naivety would be. I will choose innocence, but I will choose it in an intelligent way. So because of that, I stay out of drama, I stay out of gossip, I don't get involved in anything complicated. And having that head on my shoulders has helped me a lot, because it's meant I've not really crossed over to this so-called dark side that so many child actors do. And I empathize with so many of them, because I can look back at my career now and I look at moments in time where if I didn't have that head on my shoulders, or I didn't have my mum's support, that I could have gone in that direction, and how easy it is to have gone in that direction because of how impressionable you are as a kid. And I will say that if I didn't have my mum, I don't know if I might be where I am now, having gone through a much different journey, but I don't think I would be the person that I am now without her. That's for sure.
It's fascinating, and it's fascinating how beautiful yet like both of you have now the production company together.
Yeah.
I mean, you do a lot together. And so you're like it's a real creative partnership. It's not a mom-daughter or anything. Correct. Even though it's called Mother-Daughter Entertainment. Yes. It is called that, but it's really highly professional. And and you're so successful at it, both of you. What do you think you've done differently that allows your relationship to thrive? Because a lot of times when you have this, you can have struggles because family and work and becomes, tangled. What is your secret, I don't know, recipe?
It's my favorite word. It's the word boundaries. I'm the queen of boundaries. Anyone who knows me, that is my thing. I teach them when I talk to friends and I give advice. I enforce them for myself. I set them for other people for me, and vice versa. I love boundaries. I think it's the way the world goes round, and I think it's how we can kind of live harmoniously. For me, with my mum, she actually lives in my apartment. So this is my apartment, which is why you've seen this background twice now. And she lives with me. And so for us, it was really important to put those boundaries in place for work and personal life, because it can so easily become an imbalanced work-life balance, because you never really leave, you don't go into an office, because we work remotely, and it can get very murky. So when she moved in with me, we had to really navigate what those boundaries looked like for each other, and it was a little bit of trial and error of maybe this time of the day works better than this, and just playing around with it, but it's come to this place where my sleep schedule, my work schedule, my life schedule is really balanced, and it's because she respects my boundaries and I respect her boundaries. And I think that's the way we're able to really work together in a way that's so cohesive, and we're able to be so productive, is because we respect each other and we respect each other's boundaries.
Wow. Tell me more about boundaries. I need to know that.
I should write an entire book just on boundaries. They've always been such a big thing for me, whether I consciously knew it or not, because I've always had this strong sense of injustice. And so I am able to differentiate when something's fair and when something's not, even from as long as I can remember. I've had this part of my brain that functions this way. And so I think for me, that has carried into being an adult and having good boundaries, because I know what's fair and what's not, and simplifying it into good and bad. And that means that in my everyday life, whether it's with friends or relationships or work, whether it's my mum or someone else, I'm very firm on my own boundaries, because I know why those boundaries are in place. And often it's so that I have the best life quality that I can, because life's too short to be stressed. This is my motto. But also giving the ability to keep a work environment and a friendship environment and a relationship environment positive by communicating what you need, because a partnership carries through every type of relationship. And to go back to what I was saying about stress as well, is stress affects our body in so many ways, and there's been so many studies done, especially in recent years, of how that affects us long term. And it's not saying that you can't be under pressure. Pressure creates diamonds, right? Pressure's great. Pressure makes us do things. It makes you go quicker. It's fantastic. But you can have pressure without stress. And I think people don't necessarily realize that when it's happening. So for me, I've worked really hard to build my life around the fact that I can have pressure and things can come and go. And there's time crunches and there's deadlines, but I don't need to have stress that comes with that if my life is set up in a way that means I can handle the hard things when they come at me.
I think the word you were looking for earlier was maturity, which is essentially very beautiful to observe the way how your mind works and how you kind of build this logical connection between things. And it's truly fascinating also, I mean, I keep saying that it's a very young age, but like, it's very remarkable. There are not a lot of people who are thinking like you. This day and age. It's
definitely an interesting one, because I have a few friends that are a similar age to me, and when I find people that have a similar mentality, we completely magnetize towards each other, because it's like, oh my gosh, you get it, you understand.
Yes.
So I'm lucky we've been able to find each other, this kind of group of people that have the same mentality, that are in a similar age group. But it definitely, I'll give credit to Gen Z for a second, because I'm really observing this at the moment, especially in the creative industry, where we know what's going on. We're a smart generation, because we've been through this really weird transition of technological growth and an economy, in a global economy that's going all over the place. And we've watched these things happen kind of from, let's say, from 2000 to now, where these massive changes have been taking place. And we're the generation that's been forced to handle it as we also figure out ourselves. I mean, most of my peers, and including myself, we turned 18 during COVID. And if you look at how important that is developmentally, that changes so much about who we are. So I'll give my credit to Gen Z, which is that we are an intelligent generation because of what we've really had to go through. But then there's that kind of sub-generation that has this odd, unable to place sort of maturity that I think comes from the creative industry. I think it comes from being able to travel and being fortunate enough to do that before the world changed so much in 2020. And all these pieces feed into it. So there are more of us than I thought there were, which is fantastic and makes me feel very positive for the future. But Gen Z ourselves, we have done a really good job at navigating what's going on. And I think it's led to this kind of level of maturity that we haven't necessarily seen in other generations at this age. And it's just because of what we've been through.
I really love all of your questions. And yes, I just want to say that it's wonderful. Though, what I'm wondering is, were there also there is a deep sense of appreciation for, for your mom, having someone like her in your life, and very kind of like lived in appreciation, something that is not just shallow, but like you really like speaking to you, you understand that this is on a very kind of integrated level. The question is, have you ever rebelled really? Because like still like as a child, as a teenager though, as a young adult, you have a lot of kind of paths to explore, and you seem very kind of grounded and like very firm in what you're doing. So was there like some sort of experience that you care to share?
It's a good question, actually. I don't really get asked that. It's a solid question. My personal opinion is that rebelling comes from being forced into a box that doesn't fit you. So I've never needed to rebel because my mum has never forced me into a box. Have there been things we've disagreed on? Sure, that's just human nature. We're not all going to agree on the same things. But looking at what rebelling is and what you typically assume rebelling is for kind of preteens and teenagers and what have you, I've never needed to, because she's always given me the space to explore and understand myself. She won't let me make permanent decisions that could have a negative effect, which is a mother's job at the end of the day, but she will always let me go down that pathway to see and then be able to decide for myself, actually maybe not. And I'll give you an example of a few months ago, we were talking about this the other day, I was going through a lot in my mental health world and personal life, and I was very ready to dye my hair dark. And it looked dark, but actually in the light it's much lighter. And I was ready to go completely dark brown. I was ready to do it. I had the appointment booked, and my mum didn't say anything about it. And we got to the appointment, and I had this audition where I had to be really, really blonde. And I went, oh dear, oh no. So I went, I'll move the appointment. It's okay. Let me get the audition done. I'll give it another week. I'll know something by then. Move the appointment a week. And then something else came in. So the universe was clearly telling me, you need to not do this. So I decided to listen to the universe. And anyway, a week ago, my mum and I were talking, and I said, well, and I nearly dyed my hair dark. She went, well, I wouldn't have let you actually do it because that's a permanent decision and it's going to affect you. But it was totally okay for you to book the appointment, go down that journey, and then decide against it for yourself. If I'd told you, you might have pushed back and felt like I was kind of squashing your own self-expression, but that wasn't what it needed to be. So she's been very good my whole life at giving me the ability to explore a path and then decide for myself if I need to turn around. And if it gets to a point where she needs to stop me or protect me from something, then she will. But I think it's been a nice balance of self-exploration while also being protected. And that's why I've never needed to rebel, because she's given me that space to explore those things that maybe the people who do rebel don't get given.
That is really smart.
Absolutely. Yes.
Smart.
That's what you've described, because this question just, it was from my personal experience. Like I had a very still blessed with my father, who is overprotective, but like overprotective in a way where he so much scared that the world, is going to hurt me in some ways and that it's completely unpredictable, that it blocks him from letting me living, my life and stuff, making my choices. So it's really interesting to see that it can be different. You can have someone who has your best interest at heart, at the same time let you live your life the way you see.
Exactly. Well, it reminds me of that concept of gentle parenting that everyone's talking about at the moment, where with toddlers it's like, unless they're bleeding, if they've fallen over, don't worry about it, they'll be fine. And I think I translate that to my life, which is emotionally bleeding, as it were. And so the concept was, if I fall, if I trip, if I stumble over something, that's okay, because as long as I'm not bleeding, I'll be okay. And so the second there was the emotional bleeding, or something did happen, or there was something unforeseen, my mum was there, and she was there to help me pick myself up, but in a way that meant I was able to learn from an experience instead of just feeling like I had to turn back to her to solve everything. She gave me the tools I needed to be able to solve those things myself. So it was a really nice symbiotic relationship where she was very much an all there, all in mum, but equally giving me the space to become my own person, which is why I am the way I am now.
Isabella, may I ask you something very private? You don't have to answer if not, but you feel so composed. You feel so just perfect. Like everything figured out and everything just together. is that the reality? Is that your reality every day?
I'm
Or do
happy to answer the question.
or do you stumble over things like we normies over here do?
Very much so. The only reason I think I'm in this place right in this very moment on June 8th is because in the last, let's see, it's June now, so 6, 7, 8, 9 months. Come backwards. In the last 9 months, I have gone through an incredible emotional mental transformation where at the end of last year, I was feeling very broken and I didn't know why. And into January, feeling very broken, didn't know why. February, March started to have a bit more clarity. And then I was able to pinpoint what the catalyst had been back kind of in October. And once I figured out what that catalyst was and what the actual problem was that I was feeling, I was able to start putting into motion kind of fixing it in a way, which was for me meant a different kind of therapy. It meant talking to a therapist about some different things. It meant changing a couple of things in my life, actually removing a couple of people from my life, which I think was also very helpful, that should be talked about more. And actually introducing some new people into my life, letting some new people come in and love me. And I think that, and I don't even mean romantically, I mean platonically. And I think that's something that also should be talked about more, because sometimes you need a new group of people to go, hey, you're actually a really good person. And even though we just met you, we can see that. And I think that it was a huge help in getting to the place I am now. So that kind of combination of new friends, clearing out the old people that no longer served me, or served me negatively, I'll say, actually. Because it's not just about what you get from people, but when they have a negative impact, that's when they're ready to be cleaned out a little bit. So cleaning that out, and then also doing therapy. And I'm a big advocate for mental health and continuing on that therapeutic journey. And you go through phases of it, but I'm currently in a phase where I'm doing therapy twice a week. And it's been a lifesaver, genuinely. So yes, I stumble and I have those moments, and they can be quite big. I mean, that was, I think by the time I figured out what was going on, it was about 6 months. But equally, because of the tools I have, when I come out of it, I've had such a big growth lesson that I'm then able to be in this really nice kind of calm, peaceful, centered space for quite a while. And those big kind of learning jumps really only happen every few years because of the tools I have to kind of navigate the little ones in between.
Oh my God, I love you. Love you.
Yes.
It's amazing. I'm in therapy too. I think it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to get help. You know, we talked about with your mom too, the importance of, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
You don't have to be alone in it. And I think that's beautiful. Thank you so much for being so open and sharing it. Thank you.
Of course.
Still, you're perfect. It doesn't change anything.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Well, and I will touch on it too, that actually it's taken me a long time to get to the place where I am 100% comfortable in my own decisions, because the decisions I'm making align with who I want to be as a person. And so I know that when my decisions align with that, I'm very happy with who I am. It's when my decisions have strayed from that in the past, where I've maybe done something where I'm like, oh, that wasn't for the right reason. It then sits with me and festers and causes emotional turmoil. But I think as long as I'm staying on the path of, no, this is who I am as a person, and as long as I'm making decisions in line with that, nothing that bad is going to happen, because I'm making decisions from an intentional place and with the right intentions. And the second I started to really implement that, I've been able to breathe much lighter than I have been in the past. So I recommend to people, work out what your alignment is and who you want to be, and then just make every decision in alignment with that. And I feel much better for doing that.
Wow.
That sounds peaceful.
It is. It really is. And once I found that center, kind of grounded balance, that equilibrium, I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
And you know, the skill set, I find, your mom Elizabeth, she told us that you guys identical, though you have a little bit of a different skill set. She says that she said that she sees the bigger picture, though you are a more detail oriented person. And I wonder how this interplayed in the dynamic of the company. and that now you are you've recently became a CEO of a company.
Yes,
You overtook the
CEO.
leadership, and so please, yes, congrats. Tell us about this experience and what's been going on. Also inside, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I've definitely always been a more detailed person. That's the way my brain's always worked. If you're into astrology at all, I'm a Virgo, so we're very much into the detail and perfectionism and what that looks like. But I translate that to not just that everything needs to be perfect, because that's unfortunately not the life we live in, but the feeling of being able to focus on a task and complete it to the best of my abilities, whatever perfect means for me in that moment. And that paired with her ability to see so far into the future is a really nice balance, because I use the analogy because we actually use this practically as well as a chess game. So when I'm playing chess, I'm able to see one or two moves in front of me. I know what my plan is, but I'm seeing in the immediate reaction zone. Whereas my mum sees so far ahead, she misses the move that I'm doing. So it ends up being this interesting balance where if we're on the same team, we're able to kind of mitigate that together, where she sees big picture, I see the next move, and then we can find a balance that really works for both of us and works for the company. Internally, I don't know if there's too much of a difference, because we found those boundaries that work really well for both of us, where we're able to kind of give feedback to each other while equally respecting the other's opinion and the other's decision. And there's definitely been moments where I've said to her, you're thinking too far ahead. You're worrying about something that's not even happened yet. Let's look at the things that are 1 or 2 steps in front of us, because those outcomes might change depending on these next 2 things. And she's like, you're right. Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. But then there's been other things where I'm only thinking 1 or 2 steps ahead, and she goes, you need to think further, look at the repercussion of this. So it's been this really nice balance and dynamic that we've been able to create. But going back to it is because of the boundaries and the respect that we have for each other.
I love your boundaries.
I don't have
need
no
a hat
words,
that
no
says "Queen of
comments. I
Boundaries."
really love this answer.
I want to
It's
tap into your
amazing.
boundaries.
You also
Great.
said kind of
Please
that you are a perfectionist, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. You are. So that's also
I
interesting, because your mom fascinated us with saying, like me definitely, that she's not a perfectionist. It's about the one person that I know who says that, because around me everyone is perfectionist, and it's quite, it's like a pressure cooker.
I think the term perfectionist also gets misconstrued and I think overused, because perfectionist to me, and it's different for everyone, but doesn't mean that everything has to be perfect. It means to me that I have to do it to the best of my abilities. One of my favorite quotes is, just because you could be doing more doesn't mean you're not already doing enough. And I think that's what I translate into perfectionism, is that actually, if this is all the space that my cup has today for me to do this task, then that is the best I can do, and that's okay with me. And if it's not enough that task requires, then I'll do it on a different day when my cup is bigger and I have the capacity for more. And I think being able to know that difference within yourself is something that is a lesson I've had to learn and has been really valuable. But I think it's really important to share that with people, because we put so much pressure on ourselves for everything to be right. But unless you're doing 1 + 1 = 2, other than basic numbers and basic math, there's not everything is ever going to be right. Everything pretty much in this world is subjective because of how far we've come in today's society. So if once you accept that pretty much everything's subjective, you have to figure out what's objective to you and what's quantitative to you. And once you figure out what that kind of zone is, you're able to operate in that as a perfectionist and be very content and very happy, because you're not building your perfectionism and your expectations on everybody else's expectations of you. It's in your own sort of box that you've created.
Wow, on that note, I really wanted to ask you now, you are in pre-production for your first feature film where you'll be directing.
Yeah.
That is very exciting. Again, congratulations. Wow.
You.
Like, what, if anything, what scares you the most right now? What are you most excited about? And like, what kind of a director do you hope to be on set?
Well, I will say I'm more nervous than I thought I would be, but I think it's because typically when I'm running a set as a producer or as a first AD, I'm not worrying about the creative. So even though I might have my own thoughts and opinions or be able to help problem solve, I'm worrying about the logistics, which are objective, they are quantitative. There is an amount of hours in the day, and that's all you can use. You can't suddenly make more time. So my job is typically so bizarrely enough numbers based that I'm very dependable. I can depend on it. But the directing space is so much more subjective, and it's my opinion that dictates everything, that it's sort of hitting me how much pressure that is. And I've directed shorts, and that didn't scare me at all, because it's 2-3 days maximum, and there's maybe 10 to 15 pages maximum, and that's the whole picture. But with a feature film, I'm working on 90 pages, I'm working on a 10 to 12 day shoot, and I'm working with bigger actors as well, which is the first time that I've been able to do that. And I think, as a director, and I think that pressure that I've put on myself to know what I'm doing is something I have to work through. And actually, because the actors, even though they're bigger, are actors I still know, I think that will help me wrap my head around the pressure I've put on myself, because I have the space to figure it out as I go as well, because these people know me and trust me and respect me, and I'm not having to prove anything to anybody new on this first one, which I think definitely alleviates that pressure, because I never intended to be a director. I think that's an interesting distinction to make. Directing came about very randomly. I was always acting and producing, and maybe the other odd job like first ADing, but directing was not something I was particularly interested in, because my mum was the director. I didn't need to direct. And then I started acting coaching, where I was the coach, and I really enjoyed that. And then we came to this project where it was a documentary that we had, and I ended up directing the documentary by fluke. It wasn't until the edit where I went, oh, I've directed this, haven't I? And because that was figuring it out as you go, again, there was less pressure for it. But then going into the narrative short space, I went, okay, let me see if I like this, see if I enjoy this. And I realized that I really enjoy directing projects that I connect to. If I don't connect to it, I don't have an interest in directing it. That's just my experience. Some people will direct no matter what the project is, and that's fantastic for them, but my brain needs to be more emotionally connected to it. And so I found a couple of shorts since that first one that I've really connected to, that I've been able to direct, and I've loved it. And so when this feature came around and it was this opportunity to direct it, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. I'll let the universe dictate whether this is meant for me. If it's not meant for me, it'll be taken away, and that's fine. But enjoying the process and having the experience to learn and the safe space to learn, I think is really valuable and exciting. And who knows, I might finish this feature and go, okay, now I'll just stick with shorts. I've got no idea, and I'm open to any answer. But I also might finish this feature and go, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I think also having that in my head also puts pressure on myself to go, well, I need to decide. But actually knowing that whatever I decide after the fact is just what's meant for me, then I'm okay with that. So yeah, definitely nervous, definitely a little bit of pressure from myself more than anything else. But I think it'll be a fun experience, and I'm excited to learn.
Wow. You talk about the universe, and you say trust the universe, and I do that too. I talk about that too. I talk about God. I talk about the universe. Is that something you, like you said, I will trust the universe. When you say that, you mean that you make a decision and then you let go. Is that how you?
Okay. Yeah, very much so. Because whatever energy we want to call it, I am a big believer in a path set out. And I don't mean in the way of destiny, where you hear it in movies and books and TV, and I think it's a wonderful concept, but in actual application, more so that all our decisions lead us to the next thing. And if you look at the concept of synchronicity and how there's been so many bizarre coincidences in life, I think the way the world works and the way energy works is that things will flow where it's supposed to flow. I mean, you could look at that like electricity. When there's the connectors are all in the right place, the electricity is going to flow whether we want it to or not. And so if you're able to look at life as those connectors, once they're connected, that's going to flow. And if they're not, then it won't. And so you have to navigate how you want that to operate. And so for me, looking at life like an electrical circuit, my job is to figure out where the connectors are and then let the energy flow and not try and control it myself. So if I can put that into place for myself, I often find that I'm much more peaceful when I trust in those connectors being connected and letting that energy flow, or being shown that the connectors are not connected, because that's also equally important. I said that last night before I was falling asleep. Out loud, I said, okay, universe, there are a couple of things I need some clarity on here. And I don't mind how you show me clarity, but this is what I need. This is what I need to understand. This is what if it's not meant for me, please remove it from my life. But if it is, help me see very clearly that it's supposed to be there, because I just feel a little confused. There are like 3 things that I spoke about. And I fell asleep immediately afterwards. I was like, okay, this is great. I've cleared my brain out of this stuff that was in there. And so we'll see what happens. And it might be today, it might be a month from now, but I have put it in the hands of those electrical currents. And I've said, okay, if this is a connection, great, let's be shown that this energy is flowing. And if it's not, let's be shown that it's not, very clearly. So that's kind of what I mean from the universe, is more my own energetic connections to things and what that looks like for myself, spiritually, creatively, whatever word you want to use.
It also sounds in a way that you don't have a certain level of attachment to the particular result.
I used
and
to,
that this
and
may
I will
be very
say,
helpful.
yeah, by used to I mean like 3 weeks ago. So I am very open about this, because I think it's important to share with people. But I have diagnosed OCD. It's a big part of who I am. It's a daily struggle. It can be debilitating, and it goes through ups and downs. But OCD is inherently the what if disorder. It's our brain telling us, what if every possible scenario happened? And it's always worst case. It's never best case, of course, the way our brains work. It never shows me the best things. It always shows me absolute worst. But that also comes with the fact that we need certainty. Our brains with OCD want certainty and want control, because we need to be able to predict outcomes. And that serves us in a lot of areas. I see it very much as a superpower, that I'm able to weigh these options and look at the repercussions of things. But equally, there comes a point where you have to go, I don't know the outcome of this, and I don't need to know the outcome. And it might not be okay that I don't know the outcome, but I just don't know it, and I have to live with that. And so it's been a journey, especially this year, to really come to a place where I go, that is not an outcome I know. That's not something I can know, and I'm not supposed to know that. And my favorite phrase at the moment is when my brain starts to go, but what if this really bad thing happens? My response is, well, that would be unfortunate. That would be really unfortunate. And it really acknowledges my OCD, almost like a toddler when you're gentle parenting, which is, I see that you're frustrated. I see that this thing is stressing you out, but that's a feeling, and you have to have that feeling. And so for me, I do that to myself, which is, yeah, that bad thing might happen, and that would be really unfortunate, but we can't know, and we won't know until it happens or doesn't happen. So I appreciate that you've said, I'll tell my therapist, she'll be very proud of me, that you said I don't have an attachment to the outcome, because I did. And I'm constantly working at not having an attachment to the outcome. But that phrase, that would be unfortunate, and also knowing that whatever is meant to be in my life is going to be in my life. And if it's not, then it shouldn't be. Having the certainty in those facts has also been really helpful for my journey.
Yeah, that is something that I'm currently struggle a lot with, because I do like some things I'm pretty okay with being open-ended, and like I'm not forcing the outcome, I'm not attached to it, but some things, and it just drives you crazy, because then you don't have any level of control over it. It's a completely unpredictable, out of your hands, and you're just stressing, and it's definitely not peaceful.
Well, and that's where it goes back to what I said about making decisions in alignment with myself. If I know I've made decisions in alignment with myself, but I still don't have the control of the outcome, or I don't know what it's going to be, I can still have certainty in that it's going to work out in whatever way it's supposed to, because I know that the decisions I made are decisions I'm happy with. And as long as I stick with that, the stress actually goes down a lot. I think when my stress elevates is where I've made decisions for the wrong reasons, or with the wrong intentions in mind, or not aligned with who I am. That's where the stress often kicks in, and you start spiraling. But if you're able to know, no, this is how I make my decisions, this is what aligns with me as a person, even if you don't know the outcome, it ends up being much easier to manage, because you know that you did everything you could, you did the best you could, and now you have to let it be in the way that it's supposed to be. And I say it like it's easy. This has been the last 9 months of my life of trying to navigate this every single day. But a couple of things clicked in the last few weeks for me, which is why I'm able to speak about it so kind of objectively now, where I was able to really see things in a different perspective. And some things happened in life that really made me go, oh, I could never have predicted that outcome. Even if I'd weighed every single option, that would never have been an option. Interesting. And knowing that and actually being proven that the worst case scenario in something did happen and I still couldn't have predicted it, and actually I still survived and still came out the other side, and having that kind of be thrown at me really made me go, oh, okay. So not only can I do hard things, but also I would never have guessed that this was going to happen. And here we are. So yeah, I would say aligning with what your own decisions are and what your personal journey is, and then even when the crazy things happen, it's actually manageable because you made the decisions that were the most aligned with you.
Really appreciate what you've shared and how real that is, and that is really integrated as well, because a lot of things that we now get exposed to is a little bit wishy-washy, but there isn't like really the depth and the vast of experience behind it. It's something like self-projections and stuff, but your story seems like very, very integrated.
Also, what I will say too, because I think when people talk about journeys and emotional growth, they talk about the outcome. I also want to say that having breakdowns and spirals and crying on the floor is also completely normal. I had multiple of those in my entire life. 23 years, I've dealt with it my entire life. And I think acknowledging those is also really important, because just because you have them, it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, and it doesn't mean that you're broken in any way. I like to look at those as moments, and this has, again, been journeys to be able to understand this about myself. It wasn't something I figured out overnight, but being able to go, if I'm having this spiral, it's triggered a deep fear in me of something. If I can figure out what that fear is, I can start to talk myself out of it and come back to I call it my logical brain, because OCD is illogical and irrational, and it's this separate part of me that's not even me. But my logical brain often knows how to navigate these things. Well, there's a gardener outside my window. Can you hear that through my headphones?
All good now? I don't know.
No, it's okay.
But it's the beauty you're saying now, it's exactly that. It's like saying it's okay. And I'm going to say too, I've had now a whole year of lying on the floor, crying, just being like not knowing the next step, what to do. And it really is what you're saying, is that my deepest fear got triggered. And I didn't think I would survive it. And it's the fear, and I made just a short about this yesterday, it's really the fear of being alone. Not alone in the sense alone in the room, but that you're being rejected and you will end up alone. Literally alone. And that is so painful. But at the same time, what you're saying, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity.
I think there's that line also that goes even deeper, which is, even if in the moment we don't realize it's an opportunity, that's also okay too. And I think that's something that is really powerful, which is like, that might be something where we could have a spiral and we might not figure out what it is for another 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years. Who knows if we'll ever figure out why we had that spiral. And that's also something I've been working on, which is that's also taking out the outcome and knowing the outcome and controlling it, where we can't always know why things happen. But it's about going, that happened, this is what I felt from it, how do I now move forward with that? And I think that's also a very powerful lesson, because I'm victim of this, of analyzing everything and wanting to know why I am the way I am, to within an inch of my own mind space. But there comes a point where I don't know where things have come from, and I don't know why I am the way I am, and I don't need to know. All I know is how I'm handling it now. But I wanted to touch on that, because I think people don't really talk about being in a spiral and how sometimes you might just stay there, and that's okay. because life will happen and you'll eventually come out of it. But I think people always talk about, which is what we're doing, right? Which is the outcome and how you've learned and how you've grown from it. But in the moment, it doesn't feel like you're growing. And I just wanted to say, like, that's okay.
I am still in it.
Yeah,
I was not
exactly.
saying that I'm grown.
Exactly.
I am still in it. Very honest here. I am still in it, and I would love to be on the other end. I would love to say, no, it is fine. I learned this. Da, da, da. I'm just telling my brain here.
Sure.
There's a growth possibility here.
Yeah.
Looking at something good.
And also, even if it's not, you know, it's just still doesn't really devalue. That's where I am currently. Is like sometimes, again, not everything is a growth opportunity. Sometimes shit happens and you just react the way you react and you spiral, and it's still okay. You're a human being.
I like
you're
to
alive.
say it's for the plot. Some things happen for the plot.
That's cool.
They happen for the story. They happen so that when you're telling people your story, you've got an interesting plot point. And sometimes things just happen for the plot. And I think that's also okay because if we make mistakes as people too, you can go, well, that was just for the plot. That was for the plot. There was nothing to learn. I knew that was the wrong thing to do, but that's okay. It was for the plot. And I think that also helps mentally, where if you feel like, what am I not learning from this? Sometimes you can just go, well, it's for the plot, and that's all right.
And that answers it. Yes. What I want to ask you, and I'm very curious now about your perspective, is something, you know, here we explore the kind of female perspective into that industry and like how women navigate the entering tools, you know. And you already praised your generation, which I really love, because I think Gen Z is given like a bad mouthing all the time. So it's really cool to see, you know, also the other side of it, and that there are people like it who are very interesting, very smart, very acute, and also very mature. And what I wonder is, how do you see this? Because many women, you know, they tend to go into, and especially like you're the youngest, I think, that we are interviewing. So that's a very fresh perspective. So, you know, in many ways, women say it as like, you know, they have to please, they have to be a certain way, they feel extra pressure. What's your experience? And do you still kind of navigate it in the same old ways? Do you have a fresh perspective? How was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel the pressure or the difference as a woman more in practice than I do kind of on a neurological level, I guess, where it doesn't feel like it's a road bump until it is. I see it a lot when I'm in rooms with people where they see me as a young woman and they don't know what box to put me in. It's quite entertaining, actually, but it's still a moment of going, oh, this is a room I have to prove myself in just a little bit. And people have told me, oh, you don't need to prove yourself. But I think that is a mentality that isn't accurate with the way the world works. Unfortunately, I wish we didn't have to prove ourselves, but sometimes we do. And especially in this industry, I will say, especially with film. So there are some rooms where I have to very much prove myself and show to people that I'm supposed to be there. And if I didn't want to do that, I could leave. But if I choose to be in that space, I have to put myself in the space as honestly as I can. But I think it's less so much of just being a woman, and I would say 50-50 being a woman and a young woman. I think that's where I have had the experience. And I that's not to negate anyone's experience who are not in my position, but it's still, for me, what I'm experiencing right now is the fact that they see my age and then they see my gender and they put two and two together and it becomes its own battle. And I think women of all ages have this, where there's some sort of age that gets brought into it, unfortunately, but I can't speak to anything older than me because that's not my experience that I'm having right now. But I definitely see people's lack of understanding of how much knowledge I do have. And I will say this has come from men and women. I don't want to differentiate between one gender. This has come from everyone. This isn't just men see me this way. This is everyone. But they see my age and it comes to the front and they project onto me their fears from when they were younger. and that ends up being how they portray me. And I've had to work at choosing which spaces to stay in and which ones to not stay in. But yeah, there's definitely been some learning curves of navigating how to be a young woman in the industry, but I equally think the reason I'm able to navigate it is just because I know I have so much experience behind me and under my belt. There are not many people that have 20 years of experience at the age of nearly 24. So
Yes.
I know for a fact that I can go, time is time. This is how much experience I have factually. It's not subjective. And you can't really argue with that. So that's been definitely my platform and pedestal to stand on for sure.
This has been wonderful, Isabella. This is just gorgeous, yummy. Oh my God. So much that I'm taking
about this stuff for hours.
Yeah. And the way you said, like now, just the end where you said, the way they see me, like through their lens, through their fear lens of like how it's interesting because I encountered that also with my age, you know what I mean? It's interesting. And if you're meeting older women, they're like, oh, you know, you're like, wait, that's not my issue. I don't have that. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's really,
and there's this mentality that it's about fighting for your seat at the table. And my logic is make your own table, make your own seat. Why is there one table? There's lots of tables. Let's just make new tables. And I think that mentality scares people too. But that's a lot of what the Gen Z mentality is. So that's why I think it's refreshing.
We're taking that. I am making my own table, my own thing. And that's where I'm going to be sitting. Love it. And also in the night, talking to the universe and God and just go like, please show me. Is this meant to be in my life or not? If not, take it. And if so, show me how. I love that. This is amazing.
Very powerful.
Thank you so much. It is really powerful. Thank you so much. This has been
Thank you so much.
Maybe the last point is, how is the best to reach out to you?
Yes, so my social media, I'm very active on it. My Instagram is at Isabella_B_T. There's also my website, which is IsabellaBlake-Thomas.com, which just has kind of updates for me as an actor and creatively what I do. But then there's also motherdaughterent.com, which is my company website. But you can kind of find us and me through everything else. So one of those will lead you to everything.
And we will have it in the show notes. So
beautiful.
It's going to be there, all of it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.